Welcome back to KerbRider F1, fellow F1 fans. And this is not the Bahrain Grand Prix rundown because we aren't having one. Welcome back, as always, to my partner in crime, Mike Boyd. How are you, Mike? Good to see you
Mate,
again.
Adam, really well, mate. Really well. It's been a long couple of weeks, and there's a few more
Mm.
weeks to go. How you feeling in your automotive fix, as it were, your high octane sort
Um,
of adrenaline fix?
well, the last couple of days, like I was getting a bit of a hankering, I suppose, for some racing. So I've actually gone back and started rewatching the 1996 championship again. Watched quite a bit of that today. Um, that was the first season I watched pretty much fully without missing a race.
Yep,
When I
yep.
because I was just at just no, a bit longer out of high school, but I had the time and didn't have a job, so I could stay up late and I was
The good
watching
old
F1
days.
races. Yeah, yeah, devoted my life to F1 like 30 odd years ago and
Michael's
had
first season at Ferrari.
yes, Michael's first season at Ferrari. It was really, watching it today. There was one race where Hill qualified on pole. It might have been Brazil or Argentina, but he qualified on pole. Villeneuve was second, and he was 8 tenths behind him in second place.
Yep,
So they're the type of gaps that
yep.
we were used to nowadays. Like 2 or 3 tenths between first and second, or between any places on the grid, was pretty normal. Um, yeah.
Is that
So.
is that also the season where, was it 97, where Schumacher, Villeneuve, I don't know if it was Hill or who it was, and all um they all got the exact same pole time down
Oh
to
no,
the
that was.
thousandth of a second.
Yeah,
Like
that was Jerez 97 with Frentzen, Villeneuve, and Schumacher.
Prince and Villeneuve and Schumacher, and they all
Mm.
got, I can't remember what it was, and it was
It was.
whatever the time was, dot 000, like it
I
was
had the
it was
time. I had the time memorized, waiting for a quiz night one night. It was 1:42.072 or something silly like
yeah,
that.
0 7 no, no, that's it, 072. I think you're spot on with
Yeah,
that. Yes.
yeah, um, yeah. I deliberately tried and memorize it, and I don't think I've got it exactly right, but I'm close enough. Yeah.
Right. So you're harking back to 1996, righto. I
Yeah.
dabbled in a bit of V8 supercars on the weekend, although
Ah,
the
yes.
Sunday was called off because it was a bit windy in the North Island
Ah,
of New. Well, there's they've had that tropical cyclone coming down. So I think the top end of
I
New
didn't know.
Zealand has
Yeah.
been pretty unruly. So no, I dabbled in a
All
bit of
right.
that, and what else did I watch? There was something else I was flicking around and sort of caught my eye. I can't remember. So yes, there's
Hmm.
plenty of motorsport out there, but
I've
yes,
got
bring
to.
on the main game.
I've got to admit, I don't watch a lot of motorsport outside of Formula One and Formula Two. I do watch Formula Three as well, but not if that suits my time zone. I'll watch it, but if not,
Yeah,
I'll watch F2 and F1 religiously. I barely even watch V8s at all.
yeah.
Um,
Look, I mean, V8 it's one of those things where it's again, if it's I'm very much I grew up on it. Like, I with Brock and Johnson and
yeah, me
Seaton and
too.
all
Yeah,
those guys. And,
our
I
first
was lucky,
was
and I was lucky early in my career. I spent a week. We had the Northern Territory Tourism Commission
oh
as a
yeah,
client, and was working for an ad agency. And one of the bright sparks came up with this idea of, we've got to get more people to do driving holidays in the Northern Territory. This was 2001.
yeah.
It was pre 9/11. But anyway, I was
Hmm.
lucky enough to then spend a week driving from Ayers Rock to Darwin with Peter Brock,
Oh,
which was
for real?
fantastic. So
Holy shit!
and you'll love this. So it was very early days of the internet,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but we had secured from Telstra a satellite internet connection.
Okay.
So we had so think of it almost like what a Starlink is today,
Mm.
but it was 56K. And I think we had a digital camera, and the digital camera was sort of, I don't know, sort of,
Wow.
how do I describe it? Sort of A5 size,
Yeah,
weighed about a
yeah.
kilo, took
Yep.
photos that you'd probably call extreme low res now,
Yeah.
but
In
just
the
being,
kilobytes, not the
but
megapixels.
mine
Kilopixels.
in 1.1 meg, like it was,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, it was a great time. So that sort of cemented my V8 sort of an enthusiasm, as it were. But yes, I'm not an avid watcher, but when there's nothing else on a Sunday or a Saturday, then that'll do.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten back into AFL a little bit too, I suppose. But other than that, I watch movies as we're talking pre-show. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I do a lot of other podcasts that are movie related, pretty much. So, that's my life.
So, okay, so what's the best motorsport? So, if someone's listening wants to watch a
Hmm.
motorsport movie, what's your go-to? Well, not go-to, but what would you recommend as a good motorsport memory movie?
There aren't many good ones, in my
No.
opinion. They're few and far between. And one thing that bothers me is that if you remember, Ferrari came out a few years ago with Michael Mann and
Yep.
Adam Driver playing Ferrari. Hated that movie because the racing is so unrealistic. It's
Yeah.
absolutely
Yep.
terrible.
Yep.
So the ones that get the racing right the most, oddly enough, I thought Gran Turismo was pretty good.
Yep.
I thought that was not a bad movie.
Yep.
F1, I've watched F1 twice, saw it in the cinema as well, and my opinion of it the second time was exactly the same as that. I can see its value for bringing recognition and eyes to the sport of F1, but as someone who knows the sport, it was quite not offensive, but it was kind of a kick in the guts in how they just disregarded the actual rules of the sport in that movie
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Rush is great, like
Yes.
the original the Ron Howard film.
Yep.
About the 76 championship. Sorry, I'm just lost losing what I'm saying. The original Grand Prix with James Garner,
Yes.
directed by John Frankenheimer, that actually has the F1 people stars in it at the time as well. That's a fantastic movie, especially if you look behind the scenes and how they made that. And I'm hoping we get a 4K of that soon. I think we'll get an
Wow.
upgraded version of that. But off the top of my head, I can't think of many more. Honestly.
Le Mans, that's one of my favorites. The Steve
Oh.
McQueen. I mean, they're a
Le Mans,
classic.
I did watch that, but that kind of bored me, Mike. It was really slow. There was barely any dialogue in this movie at all. It's so
Yes, yeah,
quiet,
you're right.
and
Yeah,
that's
and then
Steve
there's just a lot
McQueen.
of roaring engines and which
Yeah.
I guess back what was it made in the 60s or whatever it was like. I mean, it would have been might have even been 50s. Like it's just a
Yes.
different dynamic back then. Whereas
Yeah.
and you could almost argue that the F1 movie. I completely agree with you that the F1 movie. I've only seen it once.
Yep.
My son and I were very excited. We went off to see it in IMAX. It was awesome. I mean, as a visual spectacle
Hmm.
and to a lesser extent an audible
Uh,
spectacle,
yes.
fantastic. But
Yep.
the storyline was just implausible from almost the get
Oh
go.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, I thought,
yeah.
I look, I credit where it's due. I thought Brad Pitt was, um, it was that would be a hard role to play,
Brad Pitt was
right?
playing
Yeah,
Cliff Booth. He was Cliff,
yeah,
an extended version of Cliff Booth in that. Like the second
yes,
time I watched, I'm like, he's
yes,
playing the same guy now. He's into that part of his career where he's just going to play the same
yeah,
character over and
yeah,
over in
yeah,
different variations.
yeah.
But yeah, I look. Brad Pitt's one of my all-time favorites. I love Brad Pitt.
Right, okay.
Um, but yeah, I think I agree with you on that. Like, it's a bit completely implausible. A 50 odd year old man just getting, oh, come to F1 because I knew you once, and would never happen. It's just obviously,
No,
but it's Hollywood, and that's what Hollywood does. So I appreciate it for the Hollywoodness of it. It's very much, a
yes.
lot of people call it Top Gun, but in cars. I kind of disagree with that. But
That's
yeah.
being very cruel to Top Gun.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah, fair enough. I think it may be in its style because it's the same producer and stuff. Like that whole the way the plot is, the character types, the character archetypes that are in it are very much
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same as those movies have, those Bruckheimer movies have. Um,
yes.
yeah, but I always forget to mention when we talk about motorsport movies, great ones, is Ford versus Ferrari. That's
Oh,
probably
yes.
probably the best, to be honest, and I always forget to mention it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I was a guy I went to school with was one of the visual effects guys
Ah, yes.
on that movie. And I think he lives in Canada or somewhere now. But I remember his name cropping up and sort of and I remember watching it and just going, wow, like the the storyline I think is great. The
Yep.
execution is excellent. The emotional pull of that movie right
Yeah,
through
yeah.
to to
Yep.
the end. I mean the only bit of that movie that I that I that I struggle with a little bit because it would be so nice if it was true, but just that lovely bit at the end where Enzo Ferrari sort of doffs his cap to
Yeah.
to Ken
Yeah.
Miles. You sort of go, oh, I know it didn't. Well, I'd be fairly sure it didn't happen. But
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, it'd be wonderful if someone had, evidence to say, yep, no, 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 Enzo Ferrari doffed his cap to sort of, Ken Miles in the
Mm.
over, at the end of that race. Um, and I think the other really nice thing about Ford versus Ferrari is, there's just so many still living, still operating artifacts. Those cars.
Mm.
I mean, that GT40
Yeah.
number five, the gold with the pink number five on the side of it. I mean,
Yep.
that's still God knows what it must be worth. But there's I encourage people to. James May, I think it was
Oh,
Grand Tour days. He went and
yeah.
drove it, and it's
Did he?
just next level. It'll be on YouTube, I'm sure. Just Google James May GT40, and you'll find it there.
I'll have to look that up.
It's incredible. But yes, Ford versus Ferrari. I think you're absolutely. I can't believe neither of us picked that up. But
And yeah, I do it all the time. I've been asked that question a few times, and I always forget Ford versus Ferrari, which
yeah.
I don't know why, but I've
But
only
anyway, the main
seen
thing
it
is
two
there's
or
been a
three
lot going
times.
on. So we'd better
Yeah, we're
we'd
getting
better
into
get into
the
it.
yes, we're getting into the news bits. Yeah, you say there's been a bit going on. There's been less than had hoped for, maybe. I was hoping for maybe some decisions to come down from the FIA about
Yeah.
where these engine rigs are going to go for the rest of the year. I'm not
Yes.
sure if you wanted to talk about that part first. I know I've maybe skipped over
No, that's right. No,
sto-
well, let's
we'll
hook
leave
into
the
that
big
because I think
story till a bit
the
later.
big story and it's got a few parts to it. I think we'll touch on that at the end. But
Yeah, I think the rules are the big one. So, I mean, who knows what they're going to do? We could probably only speculate at this moment. I'm not sure if you've read or heard anything about any inclination of what they might be just, well, thinking about doing.
well, I think the problem is, I mean, there's just so many things they could do. It's really just a matter of sort of understanding what they what they will do. So, I mean, look, the whole point around, and again, this is all still up in the air, but the idea around the super clipping and the way that the energy recovery sort of works and so forth. I mean, that's going to be the big piece of how do we make this whole 50/50 recovery piece.
Mm,
And and
mm.
and I and I and that's the bit I've been surprised that hasn't got more legs is the speculation around will it go to 60/40 as in 60 ice,
Yeah,
40 40
yeah.
40 40 40 electric as we talked about briefly in our Japan episode.
Mm.
Um, but I also think that the other big sort of challenge with these whole with these these new rules and regulations is you've still got the likes of Verstappen and Alonso and Carlos Sainz. You've got a few of these sort of key drivers that
Lando
are
as well.
very smart guys. Lando as well, yes, who are
Mm.
just sort of going, look, guys, and look, it's of course they're literally in the driver's seat, so they've got a different perspective of it. But
Yes.
I get the sense that they're probably zeroing in on a small chunk of the bigger picture, so to speak. But we've got to be listened to. Like the FIA is
Yes,
going to
they
be very
do.
careful here that they don't dismiss the drivers and the drivers' points of view.
Hmm.
In sort of harking back to the days when Ayrton Senna used to have those wonderful run-ins with is it
Balestri? Yeah,
Ballestri,
yeah,
who was the FIA president back in the 80s and the 90s, because I think if you've the drivers now have just got such high profiles.
yes, yeah.
So if you've got drivers, and then you've also got the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari and others who are kind of going, hey, well, they're not the current rules don't suck quite as badly for us. You then
Yeah.
really it's a very very sort of it's going to be a real balancing act for the FIA.
I think they'll make some minor tweaks that will go through this year, and they might even do circuit specific ones because different circuits are going to require different energy matters. There's a couple of things that have come to mind as you've been talking. Is what Martin Brundle had a big interview about this and was raised a couple of one very great point. I think is that one of the main rules in the sporting regs is that the drivers must drive unaided and unassisted at all times. And these
Mm,
engines and this software is not that, but they are
no,
being aided and assisted because
yes,
it's AI was telling them when to deploy it. I read a story about who was qualifying? Was it Gasly qualifying in China? Or no, it might have even been Leclerc. Um, he had an accidental lift coming out of a corner, and his engine read that as something else, and it didn't deploy the full battery going down the back straight. So he lost 2 or 3 tenths in qualifying because he had
Yeah.
an accidental lift because of a bump on a track that knocked his foot off the throttle. So the
Yep.
engine decided to do something else altogether. That is not when I hear Max say that's not racing, totally agree. Like that's
Well,
not
same
right.
same thing with Lando in Japan. So I didn't mean to overtake,
Yes. Yeah.
7-time world champion
Yep.
Lewis Hamilton. You kind of go,
Yep.
well, yeah, and you sort of think, how is that, how is that plausible? Like, but as you say, the more that the drivers are talking about, look, these are the realities of what
Mm,
driving these motor cars is, these racing cars is like.
mm.
We are we are distinctly removed from the
Yeah.
from to Martin's point of the act of driving unaided, driving unassisted,
Yep.
of these cars.
Yep.
And I think
Absolutely.
you're right. I think it's going to be it'll be hard to make sort of wholesale changes across the board now. So I think between now and the end of the year, or the remainder of the 2026 season, it's going to be much more of a it's going to be much more of a we'll make minor changes here and there.
Mm.
My only worry is that if we start making changes and therefore making the dynamics of the motor cars, the racing cars, I should say, different by track,
Yeah.
that's the bit that worries me, because then all of a
Mm.
sudden we're getting into sort of back to the 90 92 93 season, the Williams, it's sort of
Yes.
those famous shots
Active
of the car,
suspension and
the active
stuff. Yeah.
suspension sitting in the pit, sort of
Mm.
literally, sort of almost shutting its eyes and playing out the lap.
Yep. Yep.
If we then start to get to a point where, or if we do get to a point where the FIA is saying, right, well, in Monaco you're going to have this, and in Spa you're going to have this, and in Monza you're
Yeah.
going to have this. That's very worrying to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to you do the KISS rule. They need to keep it simple.
Yep.
And I think because at the moment they're allowed to harvest 9 megajoules a lap during a race. I think if they reduce it to 6 megajoules, it should reduce a lot of the super clipping. The cars are going to be slower. Cool, who cares? They're still going to look fast. Obviously, they don't want them to slow down to like close to GP2 speeds. They still
No.
want them to be quick. That's the main thing. And they're still quick. And they look, I love watching these cars be driven because of the way there's like we spoke about in Japan, the power slides that
Oh,
they get on coming out of
oh,
corners. That's magical. That's beautiful. That's what we
but
want to
that's
see.
what you want to see.
But we
Absolutely.
do, but we do need to remove the machine learning of this software and when should deploy. Harvest the 6 megajoules, harvest seven, who cares? But allow the drivers to choose where it's deployed, not a
Mm,
bloody, a not a brain inside a computer somewhere. Like let the brain holding the wheel be the one that decides when this energy is deployed. And that again will put more of the driving into the driver's hands. It'll make it a bit more strategic and tactical and a bit more favorable to I would say, the intelligent drivers, the more intelligent drivers. Um, I think that's the path they kind of might need to go down. But again, obviously I'm not an engineer. I'm not educated enough on this type of thing. But I don't know. I think they just need to remove it out of software's hands. Is my big takeaway.
yeah, and I think Ollie Behrman's crash was
Oh yeah,
probably
yeah,
a nail in that coffin.
correct.
Now
Yeah,
the challenge we now have is what happens next. It's
yeah.
because it's a and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's a there are clearly some drivers for whom the new regulations just they just land better. Their
Oscar's the
brains,
big one for
their
me. Oscar's the big one
oh
for me.
a big one. What, as in it landed well or not landed
Yes,
well?
no, no. Well,
Oh, right.
the way he even talks about these regulations compared to the other drivers, he's very, and this is just a testament to the way he thinks and the way he works. Because we know he's a very, very smart person, even outside of racing.
Mm,
And the
mm.
smartest drivers are always the better ones. I mean, Fernando, super smart driver. Michael, super smart driver. And Oscar, the way he talks about the problems. He's very succinct, but he's also very correct. He says pretty much what the other guys are saying, but he's not whining about it. He's not aggressive about it, especially like Max. He's not whining like Lando is. He's not uh, he's just going about it in a very different way. Like he's like this is what I'm dealing with. This is I'm just going to do the best with what I've got. I'm not going to try and change the world like these other guys.
Yeah,
I think he's dealing with it more intelligently. I know he's only driven one race technically, but it's going to be really interesting to see how they go the rest of the year,
yeah,
and how that plays out with the Oscar Lando dynamic actually.
yeah. Look,
Um,
I said this last year to a couple of friends who are big in F1. I think Oscar's temperament is going to be, or is
that's the word I was
his
looking for.
his is arguably his greatest strength.
Hmm.
And I think and where he gets that from, I don't know. His mum's bloody funny if you follow her on social media. She's great value.
Yeah, yeah.
And the father's obviously very bright, but
Mm.
however, genetics is a funny thing, but his temperament is next level. And it's almost, I mean, if you didn't know better, you'd argue that he was almost he would be Finnish. Like he's
Yeah,
got a bit
yeah.
of he's got a
He's
bit of
very
Mika,
Hakkinen,
a
yeah.
bit of
Love
Kimmy, a bit
that.
of sort of not monosyllabic, but just sort
No, no,
of
no.
just calls it very very straight and
Yep.
true. But equally, I think you're absolutely right. I think equally that Fernando is cut from that same cloth. Even
Mm.
though he's
Yeah.
sort of Spanish and
He's more
therefore.
outspoken, but yeah,
Exactly,
passionate.
but
Yeah.
you go back through the last 20 odd years of his career, and he in interviews and so forth, he's very straightforward. You very rarely
Yeah.
see him getting aggressive or upset or angry or sort of shouty about anything. And I think
N
Oscar
Not outside of the car, no.
Oscar's
No, inside the
sorry,
car, different story, but
sorry,
yeah.
yes. But again, that just comes back to the subject at hand is we've got to be, well, the FIA has got to be careful here that
Mm.
we don't I don't want it to go too far the other way. Like, I don't want these cars to become undrivable. I don't want the likes of
Mm. Mm.
of Behrman and Hadjar and these young kids coming through to not be able to learn and to develop and grow. But
Mm.
it's we've got to work out a way here for this to be a safer, more engaging show.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that this whole sort of world of 50-50 ice and EV is. I think that's probably where the root of this current situation has probably stemmed from.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think whoever was in that meeting say yes 50-50, I think they should be all taken out behind the woodshed and
Well,
clocked over the head.
I mean, these regulations came in at other manufacturers' request. They wanted more manufacturers in the sport to help safeguard the future in case of another financial crisis. That's a big factor in why we have these engines because Porsche wouldn't have, well, Porsche were looking to come in, but that was part of their test. Audi would this is basically Audi and even I think Renault's request. This is what they wanted. Renault pulled out because they
Yeah.
couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag lately, to be honest, with what they build, which was a bit sad. But yeah, it's we wouldn't have yeah, and I think if they reduce it if they do reduce the ratio of 50-50 to be more engine side, then maybe in the next few years they can increase that once the regs settle down a bit, maybe increase it to 50-50 by the end. We're going to have new engine regulations in th 2031, so I don't know what that could possibly look like. It's not going to, but I don't know if you've seen the same things that I have online, but so many idiotic news in quotes F1 news pages trying to say these rumors that the manufacturers now want to go back to V8s with sustainable fuels, and I'm like,
Well,
it's never going to
look,
happen.
well,
Never going to
look,
happen.
it's I have seen a bit of that, and I think the one thing I think I encourage everyone, if you haven't already listened to it, and it is 4 hours long, so take your time. But the acquired podcast is just released. I think they released it on Good Friday. They released their Formula One. Acquired is a podcast that does extremely deep dives into
Right.
companies, and
Okay.
they've done a fantastic episode on Porsche. They've done episodes
Yeah.
on Rolex. Anyway, they've just done Formula One, and aside from the American presenter not knowing how to pronounce the team Tyrrell or Ken Tyrrell because
Tyrell.
it's Ken Tyrell.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
oh no, you just other than that, it's flawless.
Yeah.
Like the guys, it's incredible. But what struck home to me listening to that, but I'm only about an hour 30 into it. So I'm sort of just up to the point where Bernie's sort of taking control and everything else.
Yep.
The thing that dawned on me listening to that podcast, I think it's relevant to this conversation, is I think the other thing Formula One's got to probably do here is it's got to stop, or it's got to reduce the number of big long-term bets it makes. It's got to
Yeah.
find a way. It's got to find a way, or the FIA has got to find a way. But Formula One, I think, has got to be a master of its own destiny. Stefano's got to find a way to say, guys, what's the 2 year view? Like, it's easy to say, oh, what's the 10-year view? And let's face it, 10 years ago, when everyone said, right, we're all going to be driving around in, electric vehicles and whatever else. Well, what was
Hmm.
the thing in the Financial Times the other day? Between Volkswagen and the rest of the organisations that have pulled away from, rest of the car companies that have pulled away
Pure
from their
EV.
EV things, it's
Yeah.
65 billion pounds and counting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think Formula One's got to kind of do the same thing. Like 2014 was a tectonic shift in Formula One, coming from the V10s into the V8s and then into these
It,
1.6 liter turbos.
yeah. Yep.
But that was 13, it's 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah. Which is crazy to think
Like,
about that.
so
I
you
know.
suddenly go, and we've only had what, two engine reg
Yeah.
updates in that 12
Uh,
years?
no, just
Like like
this.
like
No,
substantial ones.
no. I
Substantial.
don't think any except for this year, right? Weren't they the same
Is that well?
engines?
I think there was some MGK, MGU sort of. Anyway, but that's even worse. So therefore, you're saying
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
12 years we actually Formula One, this pinnacle of motorsport,
Mm.
hasn't really had any substantial, or has taken a hugely long-term view on the state of the combustion engine and its relativity, and its kind of its
Yes.
its
Yeah.
dance, if you like, with with
Yeah.
with with EVs, electric power.
Mm.
I think Formula One's got to work out a way to say, guys, we want to have this overarching long-term view of where we want the sport to be in 10 years' time, but we almost need to
Mm.
say, what are our do we have five kind of 2 year sort of
Mm.
hops, if you like, or do we
Yeah.
have three-year hops with maybe a 4 year thing in the middle? Like, what I mean? Like it's Formula One, I think's got to, they've got to stop sort of what's the term, sort of nailing their, what's the name, their sail to the mast, so to
Just
speak, and
yeah,
going,
yeah.
right, that's
Just
it.
committing to this. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think
Yes, yes, over committing to things, and then all of a sudden, as has happened now, is all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on, we've got to unwind some of this stuff,
yeah.
and it's not a good look because they've
Well,
been so
yeah, for casual
determined to.
fans, it's actually not a good look because I mean,
No,
from the outset, they've maintained that it's going to remain flexible, and they are doing that. Like Tom Batsis and whoever the other guy is that's on the like that commission that does that
yeah,
future planning that basically come up with these engine rules. They're going to be flexible with it, and I think they built some flexibility into like these the harvesting side of it. So I think we'll definitely see changes, but a lot of it's got to be the safety grounds is the only thing that's going to get it across the road with the super clipping stuff, and they can do
yeah,
that. They can
yeah,
change anything on safety grounds. They
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need everyone to vote yes for that. I
No.
can't remember the Latin term for that, but anyway, they I've really lost my train of thought. There was something you said there that I was
But
gonna.
but you've got to you've got to make, back to your point around the sort of the everyman fan is,
Mm,
but you can't make it too complicated for the fans to then
no.
have to follow. Oh, and again, this comes back to my point around, if we're going to start to have regulations that are different by track,
Yes,
as in
that's
engine regs
messy.
by
It's too
track,
messy. Yeah.
that's messy. So, oh, hang on, is
Mm,
this is this the week that we're at you know
Yep.
5 kilojoules, 6 kilo like megajoules.
Yeah. That
Like we've
that's
got to be
that
we've got to
won't
be
work.
really careful.
I remember how painful it was when they were fucking around with the DRS lengths,
Oh, I
DRS
remember when they were. I remember.
zones.
I remember when they were fucking around with Michelin and Bridgestone tires and
Yeah.
bloody, all
Oh,
of that's like, all that sort of world. Like that's,
yeah.
and we're going right back into our childhoods there. But it's the
Mhm.
same thing. Like it's I just think Formula One. And this sort of leads into I think our next topic, but Formula One's really got to it's got to be far more open to change, and
Mm.
change can't be such a it can't send such massive shockwaves through the sport and the business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I yeah.
Coming back to the Acquired podcast, like it's that's the big thing for me.
Yeah. I have I honestly have a lot of faith that they'll get it right. It's Formula One. They've got the best brains in the world as a collective. There's a great mind, a hive mind in the Formula One world. I know they'll get it right. It's just going to be a matter of time when, and I think by the time we get to Miami, we'll find out. Miami will be technically the sixth race, that where the Adua rules will come in. That's the additional development of their engines. So
Yep.
once Miami's over, the other engine manufacturers apart from Mercedes will be able to spend a bit more to catch up,
Yep.
and that will be that's on a
But
sliding
again,
scale. So
even those rules, even that situation, you just kind of go, why is that a thing? Like like where did
yeah,
this whole idea of well, you can have a bit
well,
more because we've got to this, and it's a Tuesday now, so Ferrari can do X, and it's again, they're the things that I
pardon me.
worry about. That if you that are going to make this sport,
That
just more difficult to
that's a
to follow.
I mean, I get your point, but it's also I like the idea of being able to do it because that's kind of as a when the 2014 engine came in, but when they first started doing the hybrids, Renault was so far behind Mercedes that, and then they weren't allowed to spend money to catch up. So that basically
Mm.
left Mercedes number one team for seven, they won eight constructors championships
Yeah,
in a row because they
yeah,
got the
yeah,
engine right the first time out. That
yeah,
was a
yeah.
big benefit to them. So that's what they're trying to stop, that complete domination. And I agree with that. I don't like the domination. That's why they brought in a budget cap. So it's not always the same two teams winning. And we've kind of seen that a little bit. Like it is getting mixed up on the grid a little bit more. McLaren came from nowhere. They were nowhere in the late teens with Honda engines. They switched. Took them a while
Oh
to get
yeah.
their act together,
Oh
but they got up there because of the budget cap, in my opinion. That's why they got to where they got to.
well, look,
Um,
I think they got there. I think the budget cap's a good way to do it. I mean, there's for Formula One. I mean, it's funny again. Listening to
one
this
team
this
can't be
acquired
outspent.
podcast. Well, exactly right, and that's incredibly important. And I also think that the other thing that we can't forget is that, or we must sort of prioritize is you've also got to remember that money's one thing, but people are another.
Mm,
Like I think
hmm Yeah,
credit where credit's due. I think Zach Brown has done an incredible job with
yeah,
McLaren. He
yeah.
took an incredibly long term view, high risk, like off the back of what was that awful year with the Honda engines and Alonso was there. It was
2017, I think.
just,
Yeah, 16,
was it
17,
17, 18?
15,
Like,
16,
that was
17.
just,
Yeah,
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 like that was just, so I think, Zach coming in and he changed the culture, he changed the
yeah,
dynamics, he changed the focus. And don't get me wrong, it took them, with the
yeah.
exception of, Daniel's win at Monza in
21? 21.
21.
Yeah, it was 21.
That they then came through and have won two back-to-back championships. So
Mm.
I think and that's where the longer term view of this sport needs to be, I think, encouraged. But regulatory wise, I think they've got to work out a way to say how do we envisage the next 10, 12, whatever years it is, but how do we kind of work out that there's a bit of a cadence that kind of pops through it, so we're not having to make wholesale changes when sorry, we're not having to make piecemeal changes when a wholesale regulation change,
Mm.
such as power plants, comes
Mm.
in and just it doesn't land the way we expected it to.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. It was almost a really great segue into McLaren And GP.
Well, it is, and I think, look, let's face it, that's the big, that's probably the biggest news of the last fortnight
Mm.
is GP. I mean, it was funny,
I thought it
everyone was
was a
running around
joke.
like he was walking out the. Oh,
When
well,
I first
when
saw
you
it, I was like,
messaged me about
nah.
it. Well, and the way everyone was running about with it, because I think you messaged me and I sort of went, oh, okay, and I went and had a look, and I
Mm.
did see it popping up a few places,
Yeah.
but it wasn't until I then read the fine print and said not until 2028. Like people were
Yes.
losing their minds as if he was walking out the door today and he was going to be,
Mm.
he was going to be Lando or Oscar's, chief engineer or whatever his new job title is at the next
No,
race. It's like
well, yeah.
there's so much could happen in the next 2 years before he actually makes it there.
I actually read about that a bit today, just before we came to record. What his role will be. There was rumors out there that he's going to be replacing Stella. Stella will go back to Ferrari. That's not at all what's happening. Stella is actually doing the job of two people, apparently. So Stella will be kept
I
to
read that,
travel.
yeah.
He'll travel the world and be like the chief
Yes.
officer at races. GP will stay
Yep,
back at the
sporting director.
factory. Yeah, yeah. I think they've got Will. Who was the guy? Will Courtney is their sporting director.
Also,
Yeah.
so GP is going to be back at the factory.
He'll be, yeah, he won't be race bound. Stella will be the race bound
Wow,
chief guy. And GP
wow.
will be running the team behind the scenes. He wanted the promotion. He got apparently a couple of other teams hunted him. I read. So I should have written this down so I could say exactly the terms that were used. But basically, that's what it's going to be. GP will take over some of Stella's roles back at the factory and basically lead the team from there and keep everything organized. Where Stella will travel the world and keep it all organized from trackside,
Yeah,
which I love. I love. I
yeah.
think
Look, I.
Andrea Stella is a gem. I think he's amazing. I think he's just such a
Oh,
great character.
I do, I do too. Again, I just come back to what we, it's the similar sort of theme of what we were talking about, previously. Is 2 years is a long time. I mean, so much can happen. I mean, so much can happen, and I get that people have got to have long term views and things,
Yeah.
but it's it's as I said, what amazed me was the number of people sort of carrying on as if he was walking out the door tomorrow,
Well, he might. At the
and it was
moment,
then
what I
going to
was, I actually read tonight that when McLaren might be able to sweeten the deal a bit and get GP out the door for 2027 instead, maybe midway through, rather than because GP's contract expires at the end of 27, apparently, and
right.
would be
That makes
joining
sense.
McLaren in
Yeah.
28. But Red Bull recently allowed someone to go. Wheatley was allowed to go early from his gardening leave to go to Audi before other things happened with that as well. So I think the word is that it's not unusual that Red Bull will allow him to go early, but I think it would take a few
I would have
seven
thought
figures,
that
I'd say.
based on the Jonathan Wheatley outcome, they'd be gun shy and they would make him stay right until midnight on the 31st of December
Yeah,
2027.
exactly. That's the thing. This can go either way, right? So there's also some interesting comments out there, some old archival Max Verstappen comments as like the day GP retires, I do too. So it kind of brings up some interesting things on what will Max do because his contract expires in 28. I think I think
Yes, I think so. Yep,
yeah,
yep,
so I think
yep.
he's supposed to
Oh,
race
look,
in
I
28.
think, I think the max. I mean, I think and we've mentioned them tonight. Like it's, there's Max has got an incredible. He can't find what he's looking for. That's the he's the antithesis of that U2 song. Or he is the U2 song. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Like
Mm.
you just get the sense that he's looking for something that he either lost, had when he was so dominant, or it's something that he just can't quite, you can't quite quantify, and the current regs are just not giving it to him. But I think the other piece for Max is, the team suffering, GP leaving. I think psychologically will be devastating to Max. I'd
Mm.
love to have been a fly on the wall for that phone call.
I think it,
And
yeah.
whether GP rang him himself and sort of said, "Hey, this is what's going," or whether Max has known, all along that this was on the cards, and
Well, Jos Verstappen said
this
they'd known for a while, apparently.
right, right,
Yeah. I,
yeah,
I'm I I'm going to ask you, but I think there's one of two things that Max will do. Um, he'll either go to McLaren with GP, he'll follow him, or he'll just retire. Because he'll at least take a year or two sabbatical and go do the other races he wants to do. He'll go win Le Mans, he'll go win a WEC championship, he'll go do whatever else he wants to do, the GT racing and whatnot. He doesn't need to be racing. And obviously, he loves racing Formula One more because they're the better cars to drive. But I think he'll want to achieve some other things, um, and then come back to F1, and maybe to whoever's
I,
dominating at
I,
that time.
um, I think there is a much higher chance of him taking a sabbatical and going and doing
He's
something
saying,
else
yeah, 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 me too.
than there is of him going to McLaren. I cannot conceive of a world where Max is in a McLaren.
Really,
There's just something there that just doesn't,
I I
I'd
understand the
sooner
feeling.
see him in a Ferrari,
Mm,
and regardless of the politics and whatever else, like there's something. I saw a mock up the other day of it might have been an April Fool's Day joke or something of Max in the McLaren colours, and there was just
amplifier.
something when I looked at that image, I went, "That's
Hey,
not."
but
As much as I know it's not right, I just it just feels to me like
it's the
that ain't gonna happen.
but it's the Dutch national colours too, right? That papaya orange, like he.
I
But
know, but
I understand.
and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just that would be such a cliche. Um, of Max going to McLaren, whereas I think him being in a Ferrari, or being in a in a Mercedes, although that seems to be getting towed down left, right, and centre.
Yeah, but again, I don't
The
believe Toto for
and this is
shit.
comes back to what you and I talked about after Japan. It's sort of
Hmm.
it's where would he where at whose
He'll
expense would he go there? But Toto
honestly,
seems to
Max.
be
Max will go anywhere he wants. I
backing the
understand your
George horse.
sentiment of him not feeling right in McLaren because I've had those sentiments before about certain drivers in certain teams. Doesn't make any sense. I don't feel that with Max. I think Max will go anywhere where the car's good. And if GP goes in 27 and goes, hey, Max is actually pretty good over here. You want to come over? And 28, who knows where Oscar and Lando will be by then? Like there's no game. I reckon Oscar's a strong chance to replace Hamilton at Ferrari. A big chance. I think the moment Hamilton might race next year, might. If he doesn't, I think Oscar will be a great chance to go there.
Yep,
I
yep.
could see him swapping with
Wouldn't that
Leclerc
be
and
great?
Bam.
Imagine an Aussie in a Ferrari. How good would that be?
Only if the Ferrari's winning. I mean, they're always second or third best. They're always second or third best. Um,
I know.
Yeah. Can you
But
imagine Max
just
and
coming back to
Oscar
that.
in Ferrari? Ferrari's got all the money in the world. They could chuck 50 million a year each at those guys. Imagine Max and Oscar in the same team. Honestly, for all money, I think they're the two best drivers out there on the grid. Hence,
Yep,
yeah,
yep. I'll
I
give you
don't
that.
think I don't think there's any two better, and that includes Lando. Lando's championship was a little bit lucky, and I'll look, he deserved it. He won it fair and square, but I still think he was a little bit lucky getting that.
Oh yeah. Oh,
It was
massively, massively,
very
massively.
tooth and nail. Yeah, yeah. But
Yep,
anyway,
yep.
that's a different subject again. Um, and I can't remember what I was. Yeah. Oh well, Max and Oscar
But I,
teaming
but
up.
but I, but I, but I, but I do think the Max sabbatical thing again. I just think
It's more
when you
likely.
look at
It's more logical.
well, it's more likely, it's more logical. But then again, you think about those GP2 and GP3 drivers. I mean, there's so much talent coming through in those derivatives of
Mm,
the sport
mm.
that it would if you and Max, would you? I mean, again, money's it's not about the money. The
No,
money's
no,
irrelevant.
no.
It's
Yeah.
the if you're the diehard racer, and if Max wants, if he said to himself and his little kid, I want 5 world championships, or I want six
Mm.
world championships, or if he's or more recently he's gone, I'm going to get 8 world championships. Well, he's only halfway there.
Yep.
And taking 2 years off ain't going to make that any easier to
No,
achieve. And
no.
to your point, if the cars aren't good wherever he lands, I mean
Mm.
that's the that's the big risk he's got to take. I mean, and I think the GP piece is sort of, yeah, neither here nor there. I mean, I think one of the big opportunities for GP, and I suspect this would have been part of his um, part of his motivations for leaving Red Bull, is that he and Max are arguably sort of tied at the hip, and he's going, look, I've
Yes.
got to go
Yeah.
off and chase my own rainbows. I know that I've got another 10, 15 years in this sport because I'm on this side of the pit wall,
Mm.
whereas Max is, could, yeah, as you say, could be off doing a sabbatical for 2 years, buggering off doing GT3 and WEC and whatever else.
Yeah.
He's going to kind of go off on his route. So I think that separation is probably good for the two of them. But again, where does Max is, and I think the other thing that I think is important is Max as big an identity for this sport as Ayrton was in the 80s and 90s, or Ayrton and Elaine were in the 80s and 90s.
Mm.
Is he as big an identity for the sport as Michael was, and Damon to a lesser extent, or even Jacques, in the 2000s? Is he as big an identity as Lewis? Because I think that's the other piece you sort of got to look at and say, well, it's
Mm.
wonderful that Max wants to get the most out of Formula One, and if he's not going to find what he wants, he's going to go somewhere else or take a break and do something else. Um, but and this is back to my point around sort of, there's a lot of the talent pool's getting fairly deep here. Um, is there going to be does the sport need him, and less want him back, even if he wanted to come back?
Max, are we talking about Max still? Max will go anywhere he
Max.
wants. He'll go anywhere he wants.
No, I know, but but
he's
but 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 does but my point is, does the sport need Max?
Oh no, the sport doesn't need anyone. I don't think the sport needs Ferrari. That's it. That's all. That's all. Formula One only
But
needs
that, but that,
Ferrari.
and that's my point. The whole thing
Yeah,
around the sport
the sport
needed
lives
Ayrton Senna.
on. The sport will find new
The
heroes.
sport
Kimi.
needed Michael Schumacher. Like the sport, and you're
See,
right, mate. And maybe it's Kimi.
I
You
don't
know,
believe that the
it's
sport needed Senna or Michael. I don't think it needs any drive. I think it add those type of personalities and their dominance or their brilliance add to the melange. What's the word? What add to the brilliance of
yep. No,
what
no,
Formula
that's it.
One
No, no,
can
Melange is
be.
right. Yeah, yeah, yep.
Um, I pulled that out. That was a good one. Must be from the old days. But
there's your Latin.
yeah. But it's I think yeah. I mean, I'm not even a Ferrari fan, but I think the only thing Formula One needs to have is Ferrari because that's what keeps it afloat. Stars and personalities will come no matter what. They'll just come no matter what. Um, then at the moment
Yeah,
we have
okay.
Kimi, we have Isaac. Isaac can step up if that Red Bull gets good. I reckon Isaac will be a good replacement. I honestly think I actually saw a headline today. I didn't read it because I just answered yes, he is. The headline is Gasly underrated, and I know for me, I know for you maybe not,
Oh,
but for
me too.
me,
Me too. Me too.
Gasly is massively underrated. I think he,
No, you and I talked about this after Japan.
yeah,
He he has he
he's
has over
always
the
been
last
good.
2 years, he's just been he's got some oscillation in him, but when he's
Yeah,
good, he's great.
yeah.
He's not so good, he's a back marker, and so forth. But
I
but
think
I
like
think
most,
that putting
sorry.
go on.
I was just gonna say, I think like most drivers though, when you talk about his oscillations, he's not as good or he's not as quick when the car's not. But
Correct.
and a lot of drivers might, even though they would deny it, they would taper off by a tenth or two, or tenth and a half, because the cars they're not as motivated. But when they've got a good car beneath them, of course they're going to drive quicker and be
Oh
faster
yeah,
and more
yeah.
motivated. So that brings that natural exuberance and just talent comes to the fore. So when Gasly has a great car, look at Max doesn't have a good car. He's finished sixth and eighth
Mm,
in out of two
mm,
races. Like that's
mm.
it's
Sorry,
interesting.
DNF 6 and 8.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah,
yeah. So that's
like
what I
it's
mean. Like
it's yeah.
is he a little
But
bit?
but and again, I've also I also in doing the research for tonight's episode, like, we've had three races. Can
Yes.
everyone just
It's
calm the
yes.
fuck down? Like
Yes.
that's the other piece that's sort of
Yes.
doing my head in. And back to what we were talking about before, it's just sort of it's three races.
Yep.
Like,
I totally
can you
agree.
remember, can you imagine everyone losing their shit after Malaysia in, 2002 or whatever? Like, it's just
Bananas, right?
everyone just
Yeah.
calm down.
Yeah.
Like, I fully support the FIA regs and the changes that need to be made to the cars. But I
Mm.
think everything else like this, I messaged you the other day. I said, silly season started early. God knows what that month in July, August is going to be like. Because
Yeah, I
it's,
know. I know. I, you kind of
it's
raised a
it's it's gone.
sorry, I think you just kind of raised a really good social point for me then was that F1's kind of moving itself, look, everyone's up in arms after just three races. F1's moved itself into this instant gratification um, society that we're in. People, me and
Yep.
you from our generation, we weren't used to instant gratification, but F1 having a
No.
bit of a misstep, and we both know it's going to get it, they'll get it right. The other engine manufacturers will catch up. The cars will come back in to be more of a, even though it's a manufacturer-based
Yeah.
championship, they'll be a
Yep.
lot closer like they have
Yep.
been. It's just got to give it time.
They will.
And these things
Yeah.
aren't, I mean, fixing these regulations aren't something of a minute. There's a lot of politicking that would go on behind the scenes about teams not wanting certain things because that might affect them more than it affects another team. And there's this lot of hoo and hawing and toing and froing to get this thing right. But by the time we get to Miami, and unless something breaks majorly between here and Miami, then we'll talk about it then in Miami. But unless something major
Yeah.
breaks, is probably what I'm trying to say. Um, but
Well, the vote on the regs is next Monday, which will be Tuesday our time. So,
yep.
and that gives us what? That gives us 10 days before Miami starts on
Mm,
the
mm.
1st of May, I think it is, 1st to the 3rd of May. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a bit of time to sort of roll through, but yeah, I just think there's yes, there's got to be some changes made, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but at the same time, we also can't lose our shit. Everyone just can't lose their shit because we're three races in, and yes, we all had sort of high hopes for this new formula, and these new regulations. But again, I think yours is a very very good
But
point of the Liberty Media machine
mm,
has brought a generation of fans
yeah.
that are micro, nanosecond,
Yes. The attention
attention
spans.
spans
Yeah.
measured in nanoseconds,
Mm,
and they want to know what's going on, what's happening here, what's happening.
yep.
It's like no, no, no.
And if
This
they
is
don't
this is a
know,
long,
they speculate
yeah.
and talk shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look, there were probably people who sat around, in the late 70s saying the same thing about World Series cricket with Test cricket.
They
Now,
absolutely
World
did. Yeah,
Series cricket
yeah,
and
yeah.
World Series cricket and Test cricket obviously became, huge and still are
Mm,
huge juggernauts. But again, the key thing about Test cricket is, all the tradition, a bit like the Masters as well,
yeah.
topical, given the tournament ended this morning.
Hmm.
You've got to let these things play out, and you've got to make sure that we understand the heritage and we carry that through. And this is, I was
Correct.
critical of this after Japan, that there was very little footage across what I saw that weekend of Senna and Michael and
Mm,
just all of the amazing races. Damon, I did see that
yes.
Damon piece which you mentioned. I
Ah,
watched it
yep.
watched it. I watched it after you and I spoke about it
Right.
it popped up on YouTube and I watched it. It was wonderful. But again,
Yeah.
I just felt like there was so much of the Japanese Grand Prix that was ripped out. I don't remember seeing anything about Jules Bianchi in the telecast.
No,
I
I
know
don't think they ever have. Have they ever?
more morbid as it is.
Yeah.
Oh, they haven't ever, but I mean, usually the broadcasters like to sort of, say, look, this is the track and it's this and it's that and da da da. Da.
Mm,
It's and I mean, you can't say, you could not say, you could not give Imola a proper introduction, if you like, or summation
Yeah,
without
without
mentioning,
mentioning Senna. Yeah,
without
that's
mentioning
fair.
Senna and to a lesser extent Ratzenberger. Um,
Mm,
so I
mm.
think that's the big thing. It's that your instant gratification is spot on. I think it's exactly the problem we've got,
Yeah,
and there needs to we it's old buggers like you and I have just got to sort of separate ourselves and distance ourselves from that, because
as
that's just that really that genuinely
as hard
is
as it is.
you know
Yeah.
our role as sort of Generation X is
Mm.
to filter the signal from the noise.
Yes.
And that's the big that's the big
Yeah.
piece that we've got to keep doing.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I
So
realize that's what older generations' responsibility are, no matter what generation. Because, I mean,
yep,
when I was late teens, early 20s, then my parents, who were probably around my age now, actually older, same thing. Like, just temper your
yep,
expectations. Like, it'll be fine. Well,
exactly.
we've lived through this, so it's going to be okay. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly.
And if
Everything will be okay, but
yeah,
you do just have to. It's that managing that expectation. It's all
yeah,
of those elements and
but
all of those again cliches, for lack of a better term. Like it's when things just well back in my day. Well, no one wants to hear
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
but at the
yeah,
same
yeah,
time, no one wants to see some fresh off the vine.
yeah,
Influencer or someone who thinks
yeah.
they're sort of, suddenly an F1 pundit running
Hmm.
around
Hmm.
saying the world's going to fucking end. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
hang on, we got to find we got to find a balance here.
So I don't know how many
And I think,
comments.
and you are right.
I
Hey,
don't, I guess I don't know how many comments I've read online where people are, I'm not watching F1 anymore. I just give them the laugh emoji. It's like, what? Why? Because the
that has
racing
been
has been,
around
I don't
forever and
care.
a day.
The racing has been
You know,
good. I don't care what anyone says, whether it's fake or not. It's still exciting to watch. It'd be cool if they did remove the fakeness. Well, it's the engine modes. That's the issue. But the racing and
yeah,
watching these cars drive, I can't wait to see one of these fucking guys in qualifying built around Monaco through that swimming pool section, just slipping it out, letting this car
yep,
drift through these
yep,
corners. It's gonna be some of the sexiest driving I've seen since the
yep.
90s, I reckon. It's gonna be amazing. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm also very much looking forward to like a wet dry spa or something like that. Like, there's
Yeah.
again the other side of the coin in Formula One of, where, those wet dry races, those races where fucking anything can happen, and you start
Yeah.
to see, a Hadjar, or you see a Gasly, or you see
You
one of these, you
see a
might even see
Carlos
a
or someone would be
a
great.
Cadillac, or yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I tell
You
you,
might
Cadillac.
someone come through and jag a win, and you go,
Yeah.
that's what Formula One's about. That's what
Yes.
we wanna
Yes.
that's what we wanna see.
Nürburgring 99. I'll never forget it.
Um,
I've watched that race a dozen times. That's nice. If anyone listening to this has not
yes,
seen Nürburgring 99, hunt it down. It's on YouTube, the
yes,
whole race. It's incredible. You
yep,
will shit yourself at what
yep,
happens in that. I watched that
you
live and
will,
it took ages,
yep,
hours that night. And it was just like,
yep.
just when you think, oh,
I remember
excellent, because
watching
I
it
was a
too.
Fisichella fan. Fisichella's going to win, yes. Then
Yep,
Coulthard, then he crashes out. Then Coulthard's
yep.
going to win. And then, no, it just, nothing was what it's going to be.
Just no,
It was
no,
great.
no.
Um,
Yeah, but anyway, so we've now only got to hang on for a couple more weeks for Miami. So what are your thoughts ahead of that?
um, yeah, well, okay. So just before we get to, I just wanted to touch on how apprehensive or actually maybe scared I am if we do get a proper wet race with these engines and the way they clip, the way they charge, the way they have the differential enclosure and speed. If it's wet on a street track, I'd be too scared to watch it. I think it's going to be a worry. But what do I think about my, well, so do you have any thoughts on that? Because I think with these wet races, I don't know how the
I
engines are going
I
to handle
I
it.
think I think I wouldn't be surprised. Again, extremely hard to manage, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little Suzuka 2 or 3 years ago. You remember, just torrential rain. I just wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if they turned around and said, "No, we're coming back on Monday. They simply won't run."
They
I, I, I
they won't
you
run,
know,
but they can't come
and
back.
don't get
They
me. I know, but it's that sort of a thing where I just think
yeah.
I can't conceive of a world where there's a wet race where the dynamics of those cars and the way that their brains work,
Yep.
that there's a
The slip
that
sliding
they're
about, they won't know
because
what.
again that's the other part of it is that you think about all those great wet races that we've seen. You're talking about the 1996 season. Michael's first win in the Ferrari at Barcelona in the wet. Like
Yep.
it's you want a wet race to be exciting
Mm.
for all the reasons that a wet race is exciting. The
Yes.
problem we're going to have with the current regulations is, and that's why I say I think they'd sooner just say, guys, we're just going to abandon it. Give everyone 3 points and
Yep.
move on. Like it's for that very reason is that there's the concerns over what these cars are capable of and what could happen. I mean,
Mm.
we saw that heading into the spoon curve in Japan
Mm.
with
Franco and
oh god,
Ollie.
Oscar
Franco and
Colapinto
Ollie.
and
Mm.
Behrman. Yeah,
Yep.
so add some moisture and a cold day into that, and imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah, I mean the slip sliding about and the on and off throttle, those engines won't know when and where not to deploy. So it's could I mean
Correct.
then we could get a race theoretically where no one finishes because they all just gets thrown off the road because their engine decides to spark up. We saw it for Oscar on his formation lap
Yeah.
in Australia. Like, I mean, it
Yep.
happens.
Yep.
We've
Yep.
seen it happen.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
Miami, a new championship says Fred Vasseur. There'll be a massive raft of upgrades, a lot of sim testing, I would have imagined, going on. So
Yes.
there'll be some big upgrades coming. I mean, you'd think there'll be a lot of aero upgrades. Who will bring something interesting to look at? I don't know.
No, I mean, it's unhelpful language from Fred because again, you don't, this back to our point, we're 3 races into a championship,
Yep.
declaring, "Oh, okay, this is the next championship." It's like, no, 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 no. We're
Mm,
still in 2026.
mm,
Geopolitical issues aside, we are where we are. This is the 4th race of the 2026 season. Like
yeah.
it's again, I think and this is what I think, coming back to our conversation around the F1 movie and Liberty Media and everything else, is this is where these fractures have started to come into this
Mm,
into this sport. So, I
mm,
mean, I'd much rather the language be Ferrari's coming with a truckload of, fantastic things, and now, there are people peering over the walls at Maranello and or at Fiorano or wherever they're testing and going,
yeah.
what's going on here? And they've got I think they've got a filming day at Monza on the
Yes.
22nd. Like,
Yep.
just imagine all the sort of, grainy, well, I hope it's not grainy, but, dodgy, bloody, portrait videos you're going to see
Some long zooms. Mm.
on Instagram the next minute when you wake up on the
Well, if
morning
it's
of
a
the
filming
23rd.
day, they should be showing us the filming because that's what they're for, not actually for testing, apparently. You know what these
Well,
filming
this is
days are
this is
just
this is the thing.
disguised
I agree,
testing, but
but that's the piece. So, like, that's the
yeah,
stuff we want people to be talking about. You
yeah.
want to and McLaren's found some new XYZ. Like, that's the stuff you want. I think
Yeah,
it's the
McLaren.
teams. I really want the teams in the next 2 weeks to really start talking
Mm,
themselves up. Fred's out of the gate, and that's great.
mm.
But I think he's this whole sort of here's the second part of the championship, not quite what we want.
So who do you think will be the big improvers and maybe the ones who don't improve as much or at all?
Um, Look, this is look. It sounds to me like my only worry about when Ferrari says um fuck,
Ferrari's
I'm good,
always a
just
worry.
ask me. They tend not to be. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
uh, I I I think I think the potential for what I think is more likely going to happen. I think McLaren and Ferrari are going to move forward in leaps and bounds.
Yep.
I worry that Mercedes might stand still.
It's like
I
you're reading my
think I
mind.
think I think Red Bull is going to stand still. I think they're
4 from 4.
their culture and just everything else going on. Now,
Yeah.
I still think that Ford as their engine partner, I think Red Bull's day will come when we start getting into the months that start with the letter J. Um,
Yeah.
but
No.
I also think that
January 27th?
that
No.
Alpine, no, July and June.
No, no, I'm
Um,
just messing up.
you know, and Alpine's
Yep.
my other mover. And then everyone else will, like,
It'll be
oh
there or
look, sorry,
thereabouts.
I'd love to see Williams sort of, climb up the ladder a bit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
heard something the other day. Was it you saying this to me, or someone else the other day had said something to me? Was it you that said they were raving about how good Carlos Sainz is as a driver in terms of his what he comes back to the team with when he drives that car, every time he drives that car, the
He
amount of
improves the team.
feedback that he gives, he improves the team because the amount of feedback and the level of detail in his feedback. And I can't remember who was
Yeah.
talking about it, and they were saying apparently his father was very much the same. Like he
Mhm.
would come, go and set a blistering time and wipe the floor with Colin McRae, and then come back into the sort of pits and then sit there for 2 hours and just go like and
Yep.
just reel off this
Yep.
unbelievable in an unbelievable level of detail what was right and wrong with his Ford or his Toyota or whatever he was driving at that
Mm.
point in time. And I read somewhere the other day that Carlos is the same, and they're saying that the the outtake of this was that that's one of James's big James Vowles' secret weapons
He's
is that he's
Carlos.
got someone like Carlos there that
Yeah,
just
yeah.
giving like
He
is what you can have all the sensors you like on the car to give you A, B, and C,
mm.
but until the main sensor is the blubbery one in the middle holding the steering wheel and pushing the pedals.
Absolutely.
That's the sensor you really want to listen
It,
to.
I don't think I was talking to you about that, but I do have that same opinion of Carlos. There's actual stats out there of every team he's joined has climbed up the grid in that next
Yep.
championship year that he's been there or thereabouts. Um,
Yep.
but I think one of the biggest takeaways for me about Carlos, he's quickly become the team leader there in Williams after Albon had that seat for a few years, and he's devalued Albon's worth quite a lot, I think, since the last half of last year. The way he's just,
Yeah,
like you
okay.
said, with his technical feedback, he's the one that's advanced that team, not Alex.
Yep.
He's beating Alex. The team are behind him developing the car the way Carlos is giving the feedback, not Alex. He's out
Yep.
qualifying Alex pretty consistently. He's beating him in practices. He's doing this and that. If Alex is in front of him, Carlos is not as far behind as when Alex is behind
Yep.
him.
Yep.
I think he's the real deal. Like I said, between Max and Oscar being probably the best two, Charles and Carlos would be a very close third and fourth, in my opinion, out there.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
wouldn't
Yep.
be putting Lewis in that top four. I don't know if Lewis will make the top five now,
Yeah.
actually. He might, but I don't know. I have to think about it. But
Yeah.
uh, maybe Lando. Lando is better than I give him credit for. But anyway, I'm not here
No,
to
he's
rank
not. No,
drivers at
he's
the
not.
moment.
No, he's
You
not.
don't think so?
No,
Oh,
he's not. But look, I think, look. Look, my only other criticism of and Miami, I haven't been able to bond with the Miami circuit. It's a
I
bit,
hate
bit,
Miami
bit,
circuit. Hate
I,
it.
I'm a bit the same with the Las Vegas circuit.
I
So
like Las Vegas.
I just want to skip over Miami and get to Canada. Like, and that's
Yeah,
a
I love
circuit.
Canada. Yeah,
That's
Montreal
where,
is fantastic.
Canada's a great circuit. So, bring
Mm.
that on quick, bloody smart. Um, because I think that's really where, again, it's a great circuit. It's a driver's circuit. It's, back to what we talked about in
What?
our first conversation. That's a
Mm.
race circuit for me.
Yes, yeah, it's.
I think that's going to be important to kind of make that work.
I'd be expecting
Hang on, my
McLaren to do
dog's in the
very well in
background.
Canada. Actually, I think McLaren would be
Yes,
a
I think
good
you're right.
chance of a win in Canada because of those curbs. They showed in
Yep,
Japan that they're
yep,
great curb riders. Is my favorite
yes,
thing to say.
good. So okay,
what you were
who's
saying
your top
about
three?
top three, as in drivers.
Who's gonna bring home the chocolates in
Uh,
Miami?
Well, we've got a sprint race too, so depending on it's a crapshoot, but I
Oh, I
still
don't see. I hate sprint races. Just put that to one
yeah,
side. Who's
I'm
going to
not a
come over with
great
chocolates on the Sunday?
I'm not a great fan of them either, but I don't know. Look, it's they're going to be increasing the
Well, put it
12
well, put
was
it put it this way. Back to our conversation before. If they took away sprint racing tomorrow, would anyone give a fuck?
yeah, they would. The teams would because they get more
Really?
money for them. Yeah, the teams get more money for them,
Oh,
and
okay. No, 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 no. Any fans? Would any fans turn around and go, "Oh, no, you can't. You can't take
uh,
away sprint races." Really?
yes, the younger fans would because it's instant gratification. It's a race. And to be honest,
Well
it's
said. Well said.
rather than watching two other practice sessions, we get to watch two qualifyings,
Yeah.
two races.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Look, I'm with you in spirit, but I also like the way sprints mix up the weekend and make it way more unpredictable because you get one practice, then
Yeah.
you get a qualifying and sprint. You don't get much chance to build and develop a car. Austin last year with McLaren, they didn't get to do the sprint race because Oscar well, he had the accident and not took out Lando. They were shit in the race because they didn't learn anything from not running in the sprint at all. Retired,
That's right. That's
tire
right.
stuff.
That's
So
right. That's right.
that's
That's right. I
why a
forgot that. Yep.
sprint. That's why a sprint weekend is great. But I understand the sentiment of this isn't real. I think, though, another hot take, strange for me, is that especially when they develop it into 12 sprint races a year, that the sprint races should be their own championship. Do not include them in the world championship. Should be its own thing. With six races, fair enough, and clearly it's not going to make a hell of a difference.
No.
But with an actual 12 races or even more than six, it should be its own championship.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I keep it in my
And
spreadsheet.
that's a. I think that's a better way to look at it. If from the point of view of the fan, from the fan perspective of going,
Mm.
just make it a junior world championship. I hate to
Yeah,
use that term, but a
yeah, yeah,
light
yeah.
world championship.
Just
That's
call it the
great.
Sprint Championship.
But
Be
but
easy. And
but
they could
but
sponsor it
and
and call it the AT&T Sprint Champ. He gives a shit, but just keep it separate.
yeah. And
Yeah.
would you change any of the dynamics of the cars to make this sprint racing? Would you? Because I presume in the sprint
Nah.
races they still have to start with a full tank of
Oh,
gas.
no, 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 no. They would only start with a third of the race. So, well, I think they're down to 70 kilos this year of fuel rather than 100. So they'd only be running
Are they?
like,
Right,
yeah, they'd only be running like 25 kilos max, I reckon, of fuel during a sprint.
right.
I'm pretty sure it dropped to 70 kilos. Someone check me on that, but I'm sure because obviously it was 100 in the previous engine rigs.
Yes,
And now
yeah,
it's dropped to
yeah.
70 because most of the power should
No,
be
I think
coming
I
from
think I think
battery.
I think I've read that somewhere as well. Yeah, but
With
and that's what I mean. Like if you're going to create a new championship, how do you? And again, this is probably a rhetorical question, but it's if you wanted to create, the AT&T, um, you know, Formula One Sprint Championship,
mm,
that's great. But apart from the shorter racing, how could you? And again, it doesn't have to you don't have to answer it right away, but how could you make it a better? How could you spice it up a bit? To do it.
okay. The one way, and I didn't imagine I'd have an answer straight away, but I think I do. The one way you could differentiate it and make it spicy all through the field in a sprint race, rather than guys who are running 12th, only the top eight score at the moment. A guy running in 12th is like, I'm not going to fight for 11th. Who gives a shit? But I mean, races will, but they won't put their whole heart into it. If you reward
Yeah,
points, the entire field from 25, 20, 19, then down to one, to every driver gets a point that finishes. If you finish, you get a point. If you don't finish, you don't get a point. That's
yeah,
caveat number one. But points all the way down the field. Then 15th and 16th will be fighting for 15th because there's an extra point on offer. That could mean
yeah,
whatever for the
yep,
team. That's the only
yep,
immediate way I could think of making this a bit more exciting. Because then
yep,
if there are those leading cars out the front who are just cruising to a win, at least we can watch racing down the back. Um,
yeah, yeah.
that has a meaning. We can
Yeah,
watch racing down the
because you're
back
right, because
now,
you're right. Otherwise, they just go, "Oh bugger this, we're racing for 15th. Let's just retire the car
but yeah,
and do some prep and
save an
whatever
engine,
else, like
save
move on."
something, or
Yeah,
treat it as a
yeah,
test session instead. Try some
yeah.
different whatevers. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. I was sort of my brain was trying to sort of think about things that were more sort of mechanical and more,
I don't think you could change the
where where
cars.
where where things could go wrong. Like, do you? So
Maybe,
it's still a
maybe
mandatory pit stop, isn't there, in sprints?
no,
Yes.
there's not at all. No, there's no sprint. There's no
Oh,
pit
isn't
stop
there?
in sprints. No, I reckon maybe another thing you could do was something with the tires. I'm fucking around with the tires. Maybe put grooves in them like we had in the no, was it the 90s or the early thousands? We put grooves in tires. Um, just something different.
I would still love a random rain. Just track's wet, just random. The track gets
Yeah.
wet.
Yeah, do you know when Singapore started and they were going to be a night race? I'm like, how the fuck are they going to light an entire track? And then now people, Bernie used to joke we should have sprinklers that come on randomly. I'm like, who's going to put sprinklers all the way? They did it with lights. They could do it with sprinklers. Is probably the point I'm trying
Oh,
to get at. Yeah,
water's easy. I mean,
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
least of your worries. But again, it's I guess it's a bit more of the,
It,
the Mother Nature piece works better because
yeah.
it's Mother Nature. Just, it rains. I mean, what I always find still amazing about Formula One is, although I think they've got a new weather provider this year, but I was
Ah,
just
do
found it
they?
amazing where, I can you sit there sitting there going, oh, we don't know when it's going to rain, when it's going to rain. I could go to about four websites and find a radar image that
Yeah,
tells
I
you it's going to
know.
rain in
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah,
5 minutes. Like,
yeah.
how do you people not know this?
Yep.
But yeah, weather's the great leveler as well.
Mm.
But that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, mate, that's an hour and a half done, and I think we've covered all of our bases, have we not?
Think we've covered all we can cover? Yeah, absolutely. I would, with your team assessment before, I agree 100%. Exactly the same thoughts. McLaren, Ferrari should improve.
Oh, right, yeah.
Mercedes, Red Bull will stay
We went off on a
still.
tangent there.
Yeah, yeah, we did, but
Yes,
it's that's
okay.
okay.
You agree on that. Yeah, that
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Mercedes standing still thing. It was just something just looking at some of those
It's
comments and what we were seeing in some of the research that the team did. It's just, it's, just
mm.
again back to the whole point around the teams spruiking themselves. Mercedes have been very quiet, and I reckon if they had something to really bang on about, they would have done it by now.
Yeah, mate. Well, maybe. Yeah. Who knows with Mercedes? Man, they're a different. They're a different team. They do operate very differently. But when I say
Yes.
that they stand, so I think Mercedes, as an example, if we throw out round numbers, Mercedes to improve by a tenth, Red Bull and Ferrari, oh, sorry, Ferrari, McLaren would improve by 2.5, 3/10. That's what I mean by they'll catch
Yep.
up
Yep. Yep.
because
Yep.
there's also a law of
Yep.
diminishing
Yep.
returns. McLaren are getting better on top of this engine because working more closely with HPP, which is the high performance powertrain arm of Mercedes. Um, yeah, Ferrari say they have a massive upgrade coming. Every other team will have a massive upgrade, but who's going to work the best? Red Bull still have a lot of catching up to do to get the balance of that car right. There's problems all over it, all over four corners of that, from what I'm hearing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's again, it's a crapshoot.
Ford is still on a very steep learning curve with that engine.
Well, they are, but they're still built by Red Bull guys who they pinched from Mercedes back in the day anyway. So, I
Yep.
mean, that's
Yep.
not Ford's more of a badging partner and maybe providing finances. That's what I see Ford.
Oh, sure,
I
sure,
don't think
sure,
they contribute a
sure.
lot to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, I do think the minor points probably be fought out by Alpine, the usual suspects, Alpine,
Yep.
Haas,
Yep.
and Racing Bulls. Maybe I'd like to see Arvid get back up there somewhere. I think George will win the race, though. I think George will get back on top of it. Um, second and third could be up for grabs. I don't know, although Kimmy's good around Miami. Anyway, predictions. That's probably enough. It's just a crapshoot. So
I'm gonna predict Oscar from Charles from George.
love it. Yep, cool. I mean, I can't argue against it. Like
What?
it's a
Who
good
who
pick.
who won? Quick, go to your stats. Who won? What was the top three last year?
In Miami, it was Oscar, Max, and
Yeah, I thought
George.
so.
It was Oscar, Max,
Oscar
and
Max.
George.
Okay.
Oh no, no, no,
All
no,
right.
no.
Well, there you
Sorry,
go.
Oscar, Lando, and George. It was.
Right.
I don't know why I
Right.
said Max. Max was fourth because he had a bit of a shit race in the end.
Right.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'd love to see Oscar win, of course. I mean, what a dream.
Oh, I just think he's, as we talked about earlier, he's just his temperament, just and
Mm.
I think he just needs he needs the mental um boost. The team needs that mental boost. I
Yeah,
mean, great result in Japan,
I think
but
Japan would
it's
have helped
but
him out massively. Like he was
off the
gone,
lows
okay,
of Australia and China.
yeah.
Yes,
He would know what's coming in that car development wise, and he goes, "We were pretty close today." Like I theoretically, that was his race to win. He got
yep,
hard done
yep,
by another hard
yep.
done by loss for Oscar. Actually, he's had about five or six of them that he should have won. Yeah. Anyway, we should wrap up. We've carried on too
Yep.
long.
No, no, mate. It's
Um,
always a good chat. We could go on forever.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, well, and I just, sorry, one very last thing. I'm not sure if we remembered, but I remembered halfway through that after Miami, we've got another 3 week break to Canada. That's 3 more weeks.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
was hoping it would be the next week, but it's not. Anyway, so not
Uh,
many races at the start of the
well, that
year.
was a good. I mean, that was because they were expecting that we were going to be what did we have? We were
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
go China, then 2 weeks, then 2 weeks, then yeah.
Mm.
So
Then week to week.
I kind of get
Yeah.
if they start mucking around with the rest of the season, then it'll be it'll be mayhem. So
Yes,
that's all
yeah.
right. Oh look, just I think just it's just going to be a slow start to the season. Let's hope Miami can really show um some or massive improvements for one, but
Yeah.
really just throw not necessarily throw the cat among the pigeons, but just give us something a bit spicier. Give us something that sort of whets our appetite
Yes.
through to Canada, because after Canada it's full steam ahead.
Miami's a bit of a nothing race for me, to be honest. I used to, yeah, I just don't like the circuit. It doesn't do it for me. Anyway,
No.
we'll sign off. Thank you everyone for listening. Like, subscribe, share wherever you listen to your podcast. Share the Instagram page as well. Tell your friends if you're into F1. Listen to the two oldest Australian F1 fans. Maybe we're not the oldest, but we know some stuff. Tell them we know some stuff and come and check us out. We are part of the SPDM podcasting network. Wherever you catch your podcast, there's a lot to choose from. Anyway, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Thank you again, Mike, for turning up, and we'll see you in Miami.